the dreary little ego. Are you tired of it yet? Or maybe life is fine, but you're not really feeling the juiciness of some kind of quantum experiences you've had on only a handful of occasions. Or maybe you're a super dedicated law of attraction student, but really manifesting, a mixed bag of results. So what if you could kind of supercharge your efforts with a greater understanding coming from a higher level of consciousness? Hey there, my name is Liz Garcia. I'm founder of the MindBodySpiritNetwork.com and host of HighVibeTribeRadio.com on the podcast and HighVibeTribeTV.com on the YouTube channel. And my intention is to consciously create and curate content that's intended to raise your level of consciousness on a wide variety of topics and help you be the change you want to see in this world. And layered on this intention, I'm host of your weekly dose of higher consciousness. So I really put everything that I'm sharing with you today into context based on my understandings of the map of consciousness and understanding the fact that the energy of anything can be measured as to its level of consciousness or the energy that it holds. So I'm here today to introduce you to Dr. Jean Houston, which is really interesting that she hasn't come across my awareness until the last year or so, but she is truly international luminary and pioneer in the science of human capacity and human potential. And she's like really a pioneer in that she's of the generation of my dad. I think she was born in 1937 and my dad was 35, I think. So she's going on like 80, she's in her 80s nonetheless. But she's got so much experience and wisdom and courage for her to have even endeavored this whole, topic coming from the generation that she has. But she's incredibly powerful and her resume makes me look like a big old fat couch potato relative to what she's accomplished in her life. And she chums around with people like Deepak Chopra. She's interviewed by Oprah Winfrey. She's, hung around with the Dalia Lama. And some of her other friends have been Buckminster Fuller and Margaret Mead, who actually lived with her and her husband before she passed. So I want to introduce you today to Dr. Jean Houston and a course that she's created in partnership with Evolving Wisdom. And I'm an affiliate partner of Evolving Wisdom, and I like to share content that I have discovered to be of higher consciousness. So in order for anything to shift you or make significant changes in your life, it has to be of higher consciousness, which on the map of consciousness has to calibrate at 200 or above. If it's calibrating below 200, it's not going to help you. It's not going to shift you in a positive way. It's likely to kind of bring you down and make you feel resentful and like set you back, because any energy that calibrates below 200 holds no truth, which is how Dr. Hawkins, he's the lead, he's the researcher into consciousness that wrote Power versus Force and created the map of consciousness. So anything that's below 200 holds no truth, meaning it's not going to make you stronger. It's going to make you weaker if you kind of buy into what's being spoken there. So I belong to a online community called consciousnesscalibrations.com. I actually subscribe to it, and I've become sort of acquainted with the gentleman that created that website, and I asked him to calibrate the consciousness of Dr. Jean Houston's course, which is unlock your quantum powers. And it came back at a calibration of 320 on the map of consciousness, which is huge. And it's really in alignment with the power, the level of consciousness known as intention, which calibrates at 310 on the map of consciousness. And to put all of this into greater context, Oprah Winfrey, Gary Zuvak, Wayne Dyer, they have content out there. Wayne wrote The Power of Intention, and Oprah did a Super Soul Sunday interview with Gary Zuvak, and she shared in that video or that episode of Super Soul Sunday how intentional she was about creating her show. She's a living example of the power of intention at a quantum level. She knew intuitively how to use it, and she knew that aligning with the energy of intention was significant to her success. So with the level of consciousness of intention is 310, which is 10 to the 310th power. And Jean Houston's course, Unlock Your Quantum Powers, calibrates at 320, which is 10 to the 320th power. The reason I'm sharing it with you today is because it's significant, and it holds significant truth that can shift you if you're trying to break free from the dreary little ego and really smooth out and align with the higher conscious awareness that is required for you to manifest what you want in your life. So another understanding for those of you that are applying the law of attraction with a mixed bag of results, I don't want to go into that today because I did an entire episode about why most law of attraction is aligned with a lower level of consciousness called desire, which calibrates at 125 on the map, which holds no power to kind of fuel what you want. And there's, Eckhart Tolle has done a course on that every year called Conscious Manifestation. I did 5 episodes all about, understanding levels of consciousness and the fuel you need to attract what you want. So I'll share those links in the video or podcast below if you want to look further into it, because that's on my other podcast and YouTube channel called Your Weekly Dose of Higher Consciousness. So bottom line is, I'm here on High Vibe Tribe Radio to share something that is truly calibrated as being high vibe that can shift you. So I want to tell you a little bit about the course, and then I'm going to tell you about her free seminar that I recently listened to, and I want to share my experience, my insights into that as a teacher of consciousness and my own experience, because it's super interesting and synchronicitous in nature. So her course, Unlock Your Quantum Powers, is the essential 7-week online course with Dr. Jean Houston. And in the course, you're going to tap into sources of energy within you, accomplish more in less time, and experience a profound sense of clarity about how to best achieve your goals. And I'm going to read a little something here that is kind of interesting, because people that are interested in raising their level of consciousness, building a better life for that matter, typically are consciously working to create a better life for themselves. So, and in spite of your challenges you're faced with on a daily basis, you still, have it within you to do the best that you can. So here's something that may ring true for you. So maybe you try to schedule the day so you can get everything done you need and still have time to do the creative things that you love. Or maybe you try to get better, more fulfilling jobs and put some money aside. So your intentions are of higher consciousness and true, but something isn't going right for you all the time. I mean, this is being human. This is being of not understanding the map of consciousness as an example, or understanding aligning with higher consciousness in general. So maybe you try to find friends who share your values and goals, who are mutually supportive and caring, or you focus on taking care of yourself and staying healthy, and you try to find new ways to help those you love and others who are in need. This is like a balanced human being that's likely operating from a higher level of consciousness on most topics. So, and while you may have had some success in all of these areas, substantial progress has probably been slow in coming and inconsistent, and it may even sometimes feel like you're not getting any closer to your highest goals for your life. So if this is speaking or resonates with you, it's important for you to understand that it's not because of anything you're doing wrong that things aren't moving forward as fast as you'd like them to. It's because there are things you don't fully understand about how the universe works. And this is really what Law of Attraction is trying to help you understand at a higher level. And if you listen to Esther and Jerry Hicks, or Esther Hicks really, and the teachings of Abraham, they're always trying to get you to accept that you're the creator of your own experience. Now, if you listen to my weekly dose of higher consciousness, you'll know, or if you follow the teachings of Dr. David R. Hawkins and care to understand the map of consciousness, the teachings of Abraham and Esther Hicks, when they always say you've got to be willing to accept you're the creator of your own experience, that statement calibrates as true at 350 on the map of consciousness, which is a super powerful and high level of consciousness to be at and accept. So you've got to be of higher consciousness for the map of for the law of attraction to work for you. And again, I want to go into all of that right now. I want to stick with what Jean is sharing here and what I kind of have come into in my own experience. So Jean, an introduction to her course is this seminar called 3 Keys to Unlocking Your Quantum Powers. And I listened to that this week. And I really want to share, as I'm starting to listen to what Jean has to share, I'm realizing that I'm starting to experience this in my own life. I intuitively am feeling what I need to do. And I understand that there are no limits to our ability to access higher consciousness on any topic that you're interested in. Like I know for sure, I've had a quantum spiritual awakening, which has had led me down the path to speaking to you today. And it was quantum in nature, and it was the only word I could come up with to describe it. I'm like, okay, I am not in Kansas anymore. So Jean is aware of this quantum field of consciousness, as is Dr. Hawkins, and as is the map of consciousness in general is a quantum scale, a quantum map, a vast map of consciousness that we all live in. So Jean is she's quite poetic in how she speaks. She's quite passionate about all that she teaches, and she's been around a while. And she's met world leaders. Like, seriously, the woman is like, no moss is growing under her feet, that's for sure. And she's a cutie pie. She's a total peach, and she's funny. So there's some funny things she had to say, and I had to share that phrase, the dreary little ego. I just love that phrase. And so here's what she has to say. She's like, stop being miserable and stop boring God. I love that. And this is not to disparage you. I don't want you to feel bad about yourself, because none of us know any better. We feel like, being miserable is like just the way you feel. But, we're here to introduce you to another way and kind of how to unravel the dreary little ego and align with, in partnership and kind of harmony with universal ways of being, higher consciousness and higher power. So I want to put all of this into context again, which I know sharing the map of consciousness right now is likely beyond your understanding, but I'm just going to give you numbers just so you can understand relatively what we're talking about. So 85% of the planet calibrates below 200, which is negatively oriented, downward pulling, and destructive. Half of the United States calibrates above 200. So that's, putting everything into context, the United States is positive aspect oriented and constructive, as are other countries in the world. So God's will for you, I just did a podcast about this, God's will for you is for you to be happy, whole, and one. And this statement calibrates at 765 on the map of consciousness, which is 10 to the 765th power, which holds powerful truths in the land of spirit to understand this, that God's will for you is enormous relative to the dreary little egos. The dreary little egos is pretty puny and doesn't think we deserve any happiness or wholeness at all. So what Jean is sharing, she's like, you want to connect with wisdom, and she calls it the internet of consciousness. And before I came across this, and in my own kind of intuitive way, I understood that there's no limit to accessing higher consciousness. There's no limit to what skills and kind of knowledge you can call into your experience. And I do this in my business as a web designer and as a podcast host, a teacher of higher consciousness. I'm willing to accept I'm not the best at all of this, but I can call in higher consciousness on any topic to intend to be the best for my client, my viewers, my listeners, whatever it may be. And she's kind of saying the same thing. You want to connect with wisdom in the internet of consciousness. So I say it in a different way. I love that she calls it the internet of consciousness. It's a sea of consciousness. You are connected to all of it like a drop of water in the ocean. You're not separate from it. So I understand I'm saying it in another perspective for you today. So maybe you're going to get it. You're going to integrate this into your own understanding today. Now, another interesting thing to understand is that wisdom calibrates at 385 on the map of consciousness, which is huge when you understand the map. So I'm just letting you know it's huge. And she's essentially calling this, and I've heard this called it before, is calling in a new operating system. And it's always been there because it's just simply higher consciousness on the map. Anything above 200 to 1,000 on the map of consciousness is part of the human domain and accessible to all of us. You simply have to remove the blocks to it. Our lower consciousness and the dreary little ego are the blocks to it. So it's really, she says this a couple of times in her, in the seminar, the free seminar that I'm going to share with you, which, by the way, you can click on. There's a link to this free seminar, the Unlock 3 Quantum Powers, below the video that you can access at any time and just go straight to it. So, but I want to share, she says this, and it's funny what she says here. She's acting as if the universe is hanging out and the spirit within you, the genius level within you, the spirit or soul, whatever you want to call it, is waiting for you to let go of the dreary little ego, remove the blocks to your kind of universal genius, and step into higher consciousness. This is an awakening, essentially, on a particular topic. You don't have to step into a higher conscious and awakening in all topics, but maybe you do. But if there's one topic, let's just say the universe is watching, spirit is watching, the powerful being with you is watching and paying attention to your every move. And when you step into courage and willingness to align and accept that you are worthy, the universe says, hot dog, there's a live one. Because the universe is a cosmic love muffin of consciousness. And Jean's going to say the same thing. And I have the awareness and understanding of this as a teacher of consciousness. Literally, it's a cosmic love muffin of quantum power. And this cosmic, love muffin of power ain't going to force anything on you. It's going to allow you the time and the awareness and steps that you need to step into wherever you want to go. So when you do, the universe is like, hot dog, there's a live one. Slap some mustard on it, relish, ketchup, onions, smother it with chili. We're ready to go. That's essentially what the universe is saying when you kind of like, okay, here we go, let's have fun. So Jean wants to assure you that this partnership is beyond the law of attraction at a much higher level. And many people that are not successful with manifesting what they want is because, like Esther would say, you're beating the drum. You're beating the drum of disappointment. You're beating the drum of lower frequencies, which disappointment is 125 on the map of consciousness, which is downward pulling, negatively oriented, and destructive by nature. And it's not an opinion. It's not a judgment. It's an impersonal attractor field of energy that you're unaware you're putting your attention on unless you're aware of it, because you're complaining and you're like, I didn't get what I want. I'm not getting what I want. This ain't working. You're spinning the hamster wheel of garbage and it's flying everywhere, right? Because that's what lower consciousness is. Again, no judgment, understanding where you're putting your attention on. So when you decide to step into courage on any topic or decide that you're done with the dreary little ego, there's an opportunity to align with your genius of a higher order, which is of higher consciousness. And this is my own intuitive awareness. Like I go to bed at night saying, thank God I'm aligned with higher consciousness at whatever level I can kind of use today. Higher consciousness is vast. You don't need to make a quantum leap like I have done to enjoy the fruits of that intention. I don't recommend quantum leaps necessarily like I have done, because when you jump into significant levels of power, you now have the power to create what you don't want, because I was living in fear, as an example, of the experience I was having, because I felt unworthy of the presence of divinity. Like I felt unworthy of God intoxicated ecstasy. That's the only way I could describe the experience I was having. So at this level, I miscreated, not understanding the quantum power that was within me, and that power created the opposite of that experience, which is horrific. So that's a whole other story. We're not going into that. So when you align with the genius of a higher order, the genius of what you came into, and I assure you, you came in here with a genius. And what's really interesting is I recently took a Clifton's strength test. It was like $20, and I haven't done those in a long time. So I'm like, oh, let's just take the test. $20, no big deal. And the $20 test gives you your top 5 skills, let's say, or superpowers. Let's call it your strengths. They're your strengths, your top 5. And when I saw those, I'm like, holy crow, this is my genius, period. This is what it's kind of talking about. And then when you read through, they give you a really interesting detailed description of each one. I could see other people tell me what it is by, they admire me for many of my top genius things that I do. But one of them, my top one, was called strategic. I wasn't aware of this. And this is where I realized that, some of them I'm aware of, but I'm not fully acknowledge it because it's so innate within me. This is your innate genius that it'd be interesting for you to take that test if you haven't done it, to just see what the top 5 ones are, and then these are your quantum powers, essentially, right? These are your quantum powers. See what they are, read the details of them, and then they'll tell you, what to look out for, what you need, if you're relating with others, you're so genius at something that you go from A to Z, and you have to fill in the blank for others because you're so innate within you. You're already there, and you need to fill in the blanks for others. So this is kind of a nice tie-in to what Jean is offering and how you can activate this from a higher level. Again, I do this through your weekly dose of higher consciousness, but what Jean is talking about in her free seminar is really articulating what I'm starting to experience, understand, integrate, come into greatest awareness of. She's articulating it and putting structure around it, because I'm kind of like, oh, look at that, look at that. I'm aware of it, but now she's putting structure around it based on her decades and lifetime of research, experience of others, and the kind of example her whole own life has been, as well as the example of some of the famous, renowned people she's worked with, like Deepak Chopra, the Dalai Lama. She understands the quantum nature of their alignment. Like, how did she's really funny when she shares her story about Deepak and speaks with a Indian accent. It's really funny to listen to her say that. So when you decide to align or activate these quantum powers within you, which I have done, not understanding what I was doing, it came about very suddenly. You're calling in, this is a calling in a deep fulfillment of being human, right? This is a calling in a deep fulfillment of being human and in symphony with the rest of the world. I really love this statement. It's a much deeper calling as opposed to superficial material stuff. And this deeper calling, the material stuff comes in as a natural consequence of the aligning with the deeper calling. It's a higher and deeper path, which is higher consciousness, the map of consciousness, 200 above. This is a deeper path that has power. I like to use the metaphor of gas in the tank. Do you have enough gas in the tank today to get where you want to go? So where are you at? Where do you want to go? If you're disappointed and kind of focus on being disappointed or the dreary little ego, you got no gas in the tank. And in order to get what you want, Jean is going to talk to you about putting gas in the tank, right? I speak to you in my weekly dose of higher consciousness where the gas in the tank is and the map to it. So she's saying it in one way, I'm saying it in another. But I love that Jean is showing me and speaking of it in a way that I'm now becoming aware of. I'm like, she's putting it together. I'm like, oh, why waste any more time? She spent her lifetime studying it and putting structure around it. And she shares a couple of stories about, you don't have to become an Oprah Winfrey. She shares stories about people that are in really interesting. One woman was in the field of ink, 3D printing, and the other one, I forget I think he was into trash and recycling and how can we help the planet on a large scale. So she speaks about those two stories, which are super interesting, as well as Deepak Chopra's story and the story about him growing up and how his parents were aligned with the Hindu gods like Ganesha or Shiva. I mean, these are high frequency, higher levels of consciousness that he was taught to align with. And that's what I'm understanding. This is what I do on a daily basis. I'm like, thank God for higher consciousness, A. And my intention is to align with higher consciousness on whatever topic it is I'm dealing with. So today, before I speak to you, I'm like, my intention is to align with higher consciousness and speak the truth to the best of my ability and convey it to you. So today it's really about recommending Jean's introductory seminar, which is free. And it's called, let me tell you again, the 3 Keys to Unlocking Your Quantum Powers. And I'm going to, there's a link for this below that you can use to access this. And then if you enjoy what she's saying, which the free seminar is enough. You may not be ready for her course, okay? And I have to tell you, the dreary little ego in me tried to back me out of taking the course. And I'll tell you how it happened. So I am clairvoyant, clairaudient. I have ultrasensory perception, and I get messages from spirit, which in the past I would have thought was woo-woo, foo-foo garbage, until I had a quantum spiritual awakening, and it all came to me rather suddenly. I opened up to my ability to see through my third eye, which is right here between your eyes. I hear spirit like loud and clear on occasion. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's like, hey, you. Sometimes I actually get pinched on my back, as wacky as that may sound. But when you awaken to it, it's like kind of a natural thing. You don't even think twice about it. You recognize it like, oh, okay, there we go. So I had this recurring dream. And in the dream, I'm getting ready to slam into the back of a car suddenly. Like I'm going to crash right into another car. This is the recurring dream. And it wakes me up because I don't want to crash into the car or the truck or whatever it is that's in front of me. And for quite some time now, I'm always wondering, I'm thinking literally, am I going to crash into a car? Is this how I'm going to die? Whatever. And today I finally realized, no. The dream is saying, asleep at the wheel. Stop going asleep at the wheel. And that was kind of my understanding finally was, first I thought, oh, don't take the course, you don't need it. However, not engaging in higher consciousness and higher training and for higher understanding is a lower consciousness belief. Like, I don't need that. I know that this course is of higher consciousness, that it was calibrated. It's a powerhouse course. So that message to me was, because I was not going to take the course, and then I realized, oh, no. The point is to take the course, to align with what Dr. Jean Houston has to say, and to step into higher consciousness and get the answers I'm looking for. So forever I thought I was going to have a car accident. And then today I'm like, no, stop falling asleep at the wheel. Many of us are falling asleep at the wheel because the dreary ego doesn't want to make progress. So that's it for today's High Vibe Tribe Radio podcast. And HighVibeTribeTV.com on YouTube. Please, subscribe if you find this useful. And again, my intention is to raise your level of consciousness on a wide variety of topics so that you can be the change you want to see in the world and your own life. If you like what's going on here, provide reviews wherever you found this podcast, or comment on subscribe to our YouTube channel, HighVibeTribeTV.com. The podcast is HighVibeTribeRadio.com. And just so you know, I'm an affiliate partner for Evolving Wisdom that produced Dr. Jean Houston's Quantum Powers seminar and course. And I do get paid a commission if you end up buying the course or whatever, which is not the sole reason for me doing this. The reason for me doing this is to help curate content of higher consciousness that can actually shift you and help you understand that you want to stop being fed garbage, meaning you're getting fed a lot of garbage that holds no truth. And when something holds no truth and you keep consuming it, you're going to feel worse. That's a sign that you're being drawn into lower consciousness, getting fed crap. And this is not a blame game on anyone. It's just letting you be aware, what are you putting your attention on, right? The national news is typically a place you don't want to give your attention because so much of it holds no truth. Stop watching the news. I heard this message from Spirit decades ago. Don't watch the news. And then I got into watching the news again, and what happened? I got drawn into lower consciousness, righteous pride, wanting to be right, prove others wrong. I'm like, no, stop that. So I shut off the news. I don't watch it anymore. And I feel so much better. I feel lighter, right? I'm feeling more neutral, like allowing what's going on, and step into higher consciousness on the whole thing. So I'm dragging on here a bit. If you want to know about raising consciousness, I'd recommend my other podcast and videocast called Your Weekly Dose of Higher Consciousness, that you can find on the podcast at trumpetoftruthradio.com or on my YouTube channel at trumpetoftruth.tv.com. Stay tuned. I got lots coming at you now that I'm sharing all these cool events and tools for transformation. See you again.